meet in person and actually do the networking bit a little bit more effectively. But we're going to do our best, and we're going to keep trying to bring you quality content and the opportunity to talk to other healthcare Tableau enthusiasts. Just to let you all know, we are recording this session. It is going to be available after the meeting for anyone that needs to drop off early or arrives late and feels they've missed something. So that will come out once the meeting is finished. So let's start with introductions about who we are, who the panel are, your UK Health TUG organising panel. I like the way that I've now been put in the middle, a rose between two thorns, clearly. Sorry, girls. So my name is Chris. I am the UK managing partner for Biztory. What that means, actually, I'm going to turn my camera on, let me people see me so I can say hello and hi and hi everyone. That means that yes, I did leave working in the NHS. I still am involved in the NHS quite heavily. We've got a number of NHS customers at Biztory. I spent the first 15 years of my career working in and around the NHS and healthcare data. So I do have a very strong draw towards healthcare still in the NHS and doing the right thing by the NHS, which I know it sounds weird for a commercial person to say that. And yeah, so that's basically me. I have been using Tableau for a very long time. I'm a Tableau trainer now, and recently I can celebrate that I'm now a Tableau train the trainer qualified person, so I can teach other people to train Tableau now. So I think let's get to our real NHS heroes. So Emma, our NHS graduate trainee, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi guys, I'm Emma. I currently work for NHS England Improvement, looking after cancer and diagnostics performance. I really fell in love with Tableau when I started on the training scheme, and I was put in a team that did all of the national level dashboards using Tableau that were used across the NHS. And because of this, I took the opportunity to actually spend a bit of time working actually in the Tableau office, which was amazing. If you guys haven't been to the Tableau office yet, definitely when things get back to normal, I recommend a visit. It is lovely. I'm now back at NHS Improvement and in a team that absolutely loves Excel, which just irritates me to no end. So my kind of new mission at the moment is to try and get our NHS National Exec team to start using live dashboards in meetings instead of me having to take a beautiful Tableau product, taking the snipping tool, snipping some graphs and putting them into a PowerPoint presentation. I hope you guys all really enjoy today. I know I will, and I'll see you again for the quiz.
Okay, and our brave and fearless leader, Ella.
Oh, leader. I didn't know I had that honour.
The person with the experience to tell us all what to do properly.
I don't know about that. Hi, everybody. I'm Ella Worsdale. I'm the head of information, and it's actually my anniversary of discovering Tableau. I had a demo 6 years ago yesterday at a conference in Birmingham. Took 10 minutes to be sold, and ever since I've been firmly obsessed. Got involved in the Tableau community about 4 years ago. I set up the Northwest Tableau user group, I think nearly 3 years ago now, and then joined, started to support and lead the UK healthcare TUG a couple of years ago, and got made a Tableau user group ambassador last summer, which I'm really proud of, and just gets me to get involved in more stuff and within Tableau. I work for the NHS as a head of information at Pennine Care, which is a mental health specialist organisation with learning disabilities as well, just on the east of Manchester. Rolled out Tableau about 4 years ago in our organisation and had a massive impact. There's still lots of work to do in terms of embedding a data-driven culture, which is what I'm really, really passionate about, and really love to be involved in the community and get so much out of running the user groups as well as being involved in them. So really pleased to be here today and to see you all here.
There you go, struggling with the unmute button, apologies. Okay, thanks both. So without further ado, I'm going to move on to today's agenda. So we've done a bit of welcome and introductions. Our first speaker is a colleague of mine. Anoop and I, do you know what, I'm going to let Anoop talk through himself, but suffice to say, we've known each other a long time. There are pictures of us playing football on the same football team when we were 6 years old or 7 years old, I think. So we've known each other a long while, and we've also worked with each other for a long time too. So we're going to talk to Anoop's going to talk to us about some work he did recently on a capacity planning tool built in Tableau. We will then go into a quick quiz with Emma. We then have Phil from Greater Manchester Cancer Programme to talk to us about some of the work they've been doing with Tableau, helping with that programme up in Manchester. And then we'll come back together to network and close and answer questions. So there will be time at the end of each talk for questions, and there will be time at the end for you to talk to any of us panelists. So yeah, without further ado, Anoop, I shall hand over to you. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Chris. Let me just start sharing my screen.
Yeah, and just to remind everyone, please do use the Q&A function. Ask any questions you have during the talk that you want us to pass to Anoop at the end. If there's questions that we can answer as we go along, then we will answer them.
Let me just go into presentation mode. Right, just to confirm, can you see my screen? Excellent. So thanks for that little brief introduction from you, Chris. Yes, I have known Chris for a very long time. Yeah, there was pictures of us playing football. I think I was actually sneakily got into the team a bit younger than I was meant to. I think I was 5.5 and Chris was a couple of years older than me, which I never let him forget. But he never lets me forget that I have very little hair. So we're even on that. But hi, yeah, my name's Anoop Odedra. I'm a principal consultant and a trainer at Biztory. I'm Tableau Desktop and Server Certified Professional and a Certified Trainer. I've worked with data for over 14 years. Actually started off working in the NHS as an analyst. That was my first job with data. I was an analyst working on RTT data and cancer data and A&E data, just juggling and moving between the 3 different topics, which was a great experience before I went into the world of consulting. But most of my experience has been in the NHS, so working in the likes of acute mental health, community, commissioning, or a wide range of different organisation types. But my main drive and passion comes from helping people and organizations to ask and answer their questions with data. In the NHS, that's a lot of it's got to do with performance and efficiencies. So those are the main 2 things that I've seen, or I've helped NHS organizations answer questions with their data. Outside of work, I'm a dad to 2 really, really cheeky boys. So we've got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. You can see my elder son there, over on my shoulders. I'm a big sports fan, mainly Liverpool, so I'm fairly happy at the moment with what we achieved last season, and hopefully we can continue this season, although it's going to be a lot trickier with everything going on around COVID and losing one of our best players to injury this season. I'm also a very, very bad magician. So I, at a recent team event at Biztory, I showcased some of my poor magic tricks, which were more seen as comedy rather than actual magic. So I've now since then mastered 1 card trick, which actually works and has my 2 boys thoroughly impressed. So I think I might stop there and not take it any further. But the reason for me being here today is I've built a bed capacity planning tool in Tableau. With everything going on with COVID, we've realized that actually bed capacity is going to be really, really key, especially at this time of the year as we go into the winter months, and the capacity becomes can be a problem, and the demand often outweighs capacity in many hospitals and or NHS organizations around the country. So I wanted to build something that would help organizations actually address that and hopefully see what can be done to move towards a data-driven approach to managing bed capacity. So there's two main dashboards that I've built around this that I'll talk you through. I've got one which shows us what is the state of play right now, and then one that can help you plan for the future a little bit. So let's start off with the first one. Before I start, actually, let me just make it completely clear. The data that I've used is completely fictitious. It's been built and made up for this task, but there's no reason why this cannot be used in a real NHS organization with real data. Like, we just need to format the data in a certain way and or tweak the way we calculate some of the things in Tableau, but generally it should be pretty plausible to do that using your PAS data. So this is my first dashboard. So this is looking at bed capacity and what is currently happening in my hospital and what has happened over the past few months. So overall, looking at bed occupancy. So at the top here, we've got our bed occupancy value, which is what is the bed occupancy today. Right now, we've got 281 beds that are occupied out of 319. That is also shown over on the right-hand side in this nice map, which actually highlights where the different wards are, what the different areas are, and which beds are available and which ones are not. So you can see, if I hover over, you can see we've got essentially bed number 145, which is in general surgery, is empty. So there is a little bit of background work that goes into building this kind of data set. So you need to have your individual beds data and your status of that bed, so a live feed to that. And then a map, which is really useful because it makes it very visual to see where that empty bed is, where it is in the hospital. With COVID and everything, actually, that's really important because you might want to have some quarantine type beds where you've got a socially distanced bed of such, where you've got areas ring fenced around it where people cannot go, and you can build those areas into your actual map, and your beds can be spaced accordingly as well. And then you've got ones that are occupied, which are the ones that are not filled in here as well. So again, this is completely fictitious. This actual map is taken from another healthcare dashboard that I've seen used before on Tableau Public, but the data has been made to fit that. And then we've got different specialties for our wards. So we've got general surgery, urology, TNO, ENT, oral, and plastics. And then over to the left-hand side, we've got overall what was our overall bed capacity throughout the whole year, and our overall bed occupancy throughout the whole year. And then in each month, what was the actual bed usage in each main specialty, and then that's broken down into subspecialties there as well, so you can see where those main ones come into. So they've been grouped up for that, and so you've got those Vision tooltips there, and you can go down and hover, and that will hover and highlight onto the map as well to say where those beds are, but you can see what is the current state of play in that. So this is telling us what is the overall state of play right now, and you've got your overall at the bottom across all of your specialties as well. So that's at the starting point. What are we looking at now? The next step is to say, okay, we can see that some of these are looking like they're quite high. That some of the thresholds are quite high. Also, some of the bed occupancy is quite high. Can we manage this better? Where we've got essentially plastic surgery, who've got quite a few empty beds consistently each month. Can we manage this better and make some of those beds available to other areas of the hospital to manage our beds in a more smarter way? So that was the ask. So I built this second view to do exactly that. So on the left-hand side, I have exactly the same charts as I do in my previous dashboard. So that is what was the actuals, what actually happened. But then on the right-hand side, I've got some estimated occupancy if I was to change what my bed allocation was within each area. So for instance, we've got these sets of parameters down the middle that we can play with to say where can we allocate some of our beds. So for instance, plastic surgery, I know has got, in this case, if use a better term, too many beds. We consistently have low occupancy. Let's take some beds away from this. If I reduce that parameter down to, let's say, 13, for instance, you'll notice that the colors and my occupancy over the last few months updates. I can say what would my occupancy have been if I had 13 beds in plastic surgery rather than the 17 I do have. And you can see actually we're still operating at a fairly safe level, nothing over sort of 93%, 92.5%, which is seeming to be okay. And then we can see of our 319 bed, we've now got 4 beds that we're able to reallocate to a different area. So looking across our data set, actually general surgery looks like they could do with a few more beds. So if we add a couple in there, you can see the impact that has a bit of an impact, or we could add all of them to general surgery and see what impact that has overall. And you can say, okay, now that's looking a little bit better in general surgery, but then you've got urology, which doesn't look as good. So maybe we can go down one more and add some to urology and see how much of an impact that makes. Okay, so if we go down to 12 beds, you can see that's going too far because now we're at 100%. So let's leave plastics at 13. But we can essentially play with these toggles and say, okay, how can we reallocate some of these beds and move them from one area to another that makes it safe based on historic data, as well as being a useful way to show and visualize what is happening if our bed base was what we've recalculated. So that's the main goal of this. If I was going to take this one step further and I had real data that went back over time, I think I'd probably want to look at historical trends and say, what would my bed capacity need to be if my growth continued over the last 3 or 4 years in terms of demand? Then I can take this even a step further and say, okay, I need my actual bed base to cover X number of beds, and then use my parameters, say, okay, which areas can I take beds from and which areas can I put those into? So that's the main thing that I want to achieve from this, is what are those bed numbers? How can I tweak them? I mean, I've shown this to a few people, and generally the idea that the thought is that they've not seen this sort of way of looking at occupancy over time and being able to tweak it on the fly like this. My thought would be having this in a bed meeting would be really valuable. But yeah, there's still work to be done. So this is a work in progress. I'm happy to have conversations with you if you think something like this is useful to you. Feel free to reach out to us and we can have that conversation. But yeah, essentially we are looking to build up the use of a tool like this to play and do that what if analysis. What if my bed base was lower here and I could manage that in a much better way? So it's very simple in terms of what it can do. As I said, we're not fixed on any specific data feed yet. The idea would be we could connect this to a data warehouse, and then we could build a view that would feed into this. And then you could essentially manage your beds on a live basis, looking at what's actually happening now from this view, and then what could happen going forward from this view. That's it for what I've got to show you. So before I finish, I just wanted to ask, does anyone have any questions at this point? I know that's probably a little bit quick for what we wanted to cover, but does anyone have any questions?
So everyone, please feel free to put questions in the questions panel, or if you want to ask a question, please feel free in the participants pane to just put your hand up, and I can unmute you so you can ask your question to Anoop directly if anyone has any questions or comments right now.
Yeah.
One sec. I'm just going to allow you to speak now, Steve. One sec. There we go. You should be able to speak if you unmute yourself.
Hey Anoop, it's Steve Prokopiou.
Oh, hiya, Steve.
Hi. Thanks for your presentation. Really enjoyed that. I was just curious in terms of what you presented there, and we've seen obviously a lot of wards on the TV in recent months. And do in your experience, do healthcare trusts and hospitals, etc., do they have this kind of ability to forecast bed capacity at the moment, or would this be something quite new to those kinds of organisations?
That's a really, really good question. So I know there's often been a lot of work done around capacity and planning. I know, for instance, Chris was actually involved in a lot of those projects at various organizations, and I've seen some work done on those. And yes, there is some modeling that is done on that, but from my experience, I've not seen anything that's as visual or as easy to like tweak and play with on a live basis like that. I don't know, Chris, I don't know you've or anyone else on the panel, if you've got other ideas, feel free to jump in on that one as well, Chris and Ella and
well, my experience of planning in the NHS was I was the director of planning for an acute trust for 4 years, and it was all done in Excel. This was before my epiphany and the exposure to Tableau, I'm afraid. So it was lots and lots of Excel spreadsheets with just a box with coloured, with colouring the box whether it was high or low. We didn't even do trend lines properly. So it was pretty simplistic back then. Ella, you've put your camera on.
Yeah, I was just I think the challenge for different organisations is the currency. So we, as a mental health and learning disability trust, we do have inpatients, but we also have outpatients, community services. And the challenge we're faced with is, in terms of capacity on wards, that is fairly straightforward because we've only got so many beds, and it is a challenge to predict what they're going to be like. But at the end of the day, there is only so many beds, and the only thing we can do, is shuffle wards around, shuffle. I shouldn't say shuffle, that sounds very unsupportive, but I guess you know what I mean. And also for mental health clients, then they go on home leave, supported if it's appropriate, and things like that. So there's so much flexibility. So in terms of capacity, that's not always the biggest challenge. Our capacity planning is very difficult for our other settings. So we've done, and we're being pushed obviously during COVID to really kind of explain what our capacity levels are and how it's being stretched and how flexible it is for our community, and especially our community. And we've always struggled with kind of the baseline, because every single patient is different, how many times we need to see them and how often and things like that. So our capacity and planning tools for that area is something we've been trying to work on over the last few months as we're kind of going through, I guess, different phases of the pandemic and recovery, and trying to make sure that we can see everyone we need to safely and in the safest way. So we've started some capacity planning modelling using Excel to start with, but what we do, we're desperate to do, because that, to maintain that for the scale of services we've got, and I'm presuming a lot of other organisations, it's really difficult because there's a lot of manual intervention in that. What we're aiming to look at is trying to replicate that in Tableau, and we've got some ideas, but we're probably reaching out to others to kind of help us. So if anyone in our setting has being community-based and outpatient stuff has managed to do that, that would be great, because I think that's where the real challenges are, and using the technology, because I can picture it doing it, it's like different, and also working out all the variables. So we've spent years trying to work out the variables. So we have done capacity stuff in capacity and demand modelling in the past, but it has been yes, Excel based, which is not ideal, is it?
Yeah, that's a good point. As I said, Excel seems to be the way that most people have been doing it, and that's what we've seen as well. I think that the idea here is to sort of whet your appetite and get an idea of which different, as I said, variables could be impacting on this. And then you can add those into your data and build those into your model, but have the ability to tweak that model. Like, it's having a capacity and demand model that's static is, it probably won't work very well, because there is so many variables and they're changing all the time. Who would have known there would been a worldwide global pandemic coming? I mean, that would have impacted it massively. So yeah, having a live dashboard that you can link to your data would be really, really useful in my opinion, I think. But yeah,
I think critical in a sense. Right now we're at a point where we really need to be planning. I think the capacity currency is around the staffing, and as much as the demand, in some ways you can see, and you can see potentially the impact, although that's still quite difficult. But the currency is kind of the staffing and the potential that you've got staff off because of COVID for whatever reason it might be, and then they also got factor in time for annual leave, training, meetings, and all that. So that's kind of all the currency, but it is a complex system, but it's something that we all really need to make the system work really well. And it'd be great if we can have some way of bringing that all together so we all kind of support each other to do it, because every trust across the country is currently trying to do similar stuff, aren't they? And it's a shame that we don't always have somewhere that provide us with great tools for everybody, but we're all in different systems and things like that, so it's always challenging.
But I think that's one of the beauties of the targets, that we hopefully
Yes.
can all get together. That's why we're here. We can all get together, put our big brains together, and come up with a solution that works.
Exactly. I think there's a few more questions, isn't there?
I think Robert's been making some really good points in the Q&A, and I think I'm going to unmute. I'm going to allow you to talk, Robert, if that's okay. So I'm going to click on that. If you then unmute yourself, you should be able to talk to Anoop directly.
Hiya.
Hiya, Robert.
Hi. Yeah. I mean, I love the the dashboard you got there. It's kind of it's a big overview. So I think the end user has to be aware of the plan and the layout and everything. They've got to be very familiar with what's going on the ground to use a dashboard like this. So possibly adding some filtering so you can zoom in on one of these areas. So that's the only thing you're seeing on the screen, and you're saying, yeah, I'm in charge of this ward or whatever. I would like to make a few changes here, and then from there look at how it's impacting coming back up the line rather than going down the line, as it were, on viewing your data. Possibly. Yeah.
I mean, I get what you mean. Like when you're managing a ward as such, you're only going to see how it impacts your ward, but then or you're not interested. That's not really the word. Or impact. You only know your ward. You're not going to know everything about the whole hospital necessarily. So you can see and tweak what happens on your ward, and then you can then zoom out and say, okay, so what's the bigger picture here? How does that impact the rest of the ward?
Yeah, something like that. Yes, because you're coming back up the line rather than looking from the top and going, because otherwise you're looking from the top and you're saying, well, I'm over in this corner.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. But it'd be nice just to filter it down to your ward, make some tweaks, filtering, adjusting, whatever, and then zooming back out again and saying, oh, that's what I've just done, how it impacts the rest of the hospital. Possibly.
I think Robert, you've got some really good points there, because like when it was my job, knowing the nuances of how the hospital physically flowed, knowing some really basic rules like, well, what's the size of each bay in a ward, because you can't shift 2 beds, you've got to shift the whole bay, and can you actually move that bay fairly and reasonably? So you got to work down at gender level, make sure that they're single sex bays. You've got to make sure that you're not suddenly going to put a pediatric bay into a geriatric ward. There's all those sort of nuances that go into planning, and also things like, if we were going to do capacity planning fully, you'd start to look at, well, what's my referral rate, what's the first to follow-up ratio in outpatients, what's my decision to admit rate, how many surgeries are we expecting, and how quickly are we expecting to get through those surgeries? So can we take beds from recovery and put them into somewhere else? Like at the moment, the fact of the matter is that most hospitals are losing their recovery bays to become extended ITUs. So being able to say, well, actually, can we cope with half the recovery bay that we used to have before? These sort of questions, I think, are really important. I think you're right. You've got to go down to then come back up.
Yeah. And what you're saying can be tackled with a whole stack of tick boxes for when you're making that's relative to where you are in the hospital, which is your bay, as it were. So that allows your bay can allow entries from here, and here, but not there, for example. So when you're zooming in on and they'll have different tick boxes depending on where you're zooming in, what your lowest level is. So I don't know, I mean, it's interesting to tackle that kind of thing.
I mean, a lot of it depends on how the data is and what data is available, but definitely I think that's the approach. Makes complete sense that you as Chris was saying as well, but both of you suggested having that ability to go down and take those nuances within each area into account. So again, building those variables into the model and then being able to see, okay, what's the impact of this on my entire hospital? as well, or even on in different areas of my hospital. That would be really, it'd be key to it as well.
Or possibly each area has the dashboard. They're not necessarily needing to see the rest of the hospital per se, but they make their requests, and then an overviewer or a manager can see what's being requested on another dashboard with little red X's, positives, whatever on the and that's the kind of a live interactive. So you're giving the lower level an interactive user Tableau, and you're also giving the upper management who are making decisions this will work because and then make changes, which then drill back down, something like that. So
Makes
perfect sense. So excellent points, Robert. Thanks for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your input. Does anyone else have any questions or want to make any points before we move on?
I have one question, Chris.
Yeah, go for it.
So my question, well, firstly, I can actually see this being applied in a number of settings, aren't just beds. So, for example, in endoscopies, we're encouraging people to kind of share patients in a way that they never have before, and use other providers. So, for example, the independent sector. And actually, this would give people a really good way of seeing where their capacity sits and where they could probably push more patients through a different route than to their normal routes. So it's definitely got my creative juices going. My question is, visually, it looks really simple, and I think as an end user, they'd love it because it is really simple. But I'm assuming it's maybe not so simple to build, and just whether you could go into a bit of kind of how tricky is it in the back end, or is it as simple as it looks?
So I can show you a little bit of how it's actually not that complex. If I show, I would say the worksheet.
Parameter masterclass. Here we go.
Yeah. So it's really not that complex. So there's a few calculations that we've got in here around like occupy. Let's have a look. I'm trying to remember now. Bed occupancy percentage, and working out what you've got as available beds, what you've got as with parameters, and take that into account for your numerators and denominators. It's some fairly simple maths to get to this point. As you add more variables, that's where it gets more and more complex. But yeah, it's not. I wouldn't say it's overly complex at the moment. If it can be as complex as you need it to be, really. But let's have, for instance, bed occupancy percentage as a calculation is just the monthly occupied beds divided by the daily bed allocation, and your daily bed allocation takes into account essentially those parameters. So it's really, really straightforward to build. It's not complex. In my opinion, I'd say it's fairly simple. But as I said, the more variables you'd add, the more complex you can make it, essentially. I'm trying to go back through my calculations and see if there's anything that's groundbreaking. But I don't think there is anything that's really, really. As I said, we've got things like our capacities, for our colouring and stuff, what's happening for our thresholds set up there as well, and that's simply just looking at percentages. If it's less than it's within 0.3% of the 85% target, then it's green, amber, or escalation essentially, or 8% of that, then it's amber. So you've got some thresholds built in there, really. But yeah, pretty straightforward in my opinion at this point.
Thank you. That's what I love about Tableau, though, because Tableau makes that straightforward.
Yeah,
That's
completely.
A few things that don't take very long, that aren't that complicated, but when you put it all together, create something really quite seamless and that feels complicated.
Yeah,
it feels like that would take a lot of work, whereas actually Tableau gives you the tools to be able to do it quickly.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge possibly would be working out for this historic view is working out who was in on which day to work out occupancy at a particular point in time. But if you've got essentially you'll be densifying your data so that each person has got a record for each day that they're in the hospital. So if someone's got a length of stay of 5, they actually have 5 rows in the data set, 1 for each day that they're in. That way you can say, okay, this bed, this number of beds were occupied on a given day, month, and roll that up or down as you need to, and then you can play with your occupancy as you need to as well. But yeah, I think that was probably the most challenging part of it, was getting the data into that format. But it's by no means impossible, by no means.
Okay, we have one more question. I'm trying to decide, do we have time for one more question? Yes, one more question. So Nicole A does not like the visuals on this. This dashboard wouldn't get past the NHS colleagues and internal stakeholders. There's too many indicators. So I guess there's the question about simplification and well, basically there are too many indicators on the dashboard. Is there, what was your response, Anoop? Sorry.
Well, I mean, that's fine. Like, the question here for me and to build this dashboard was to say, okay, what was the occupancy in all of these different main specialties and overall, and what could it be if we tweaked those? If depending on what the question is, we could rephrase that, or we could change the visualization. Definitely, we could have this as similar to this one, like a circle plot. So you've got a circle where for each occupancy for each actual specialty, you've got lots of different options as to how to improve this or make it fit your question. And I think that's actually, again, one of the big powers of Tableau is that you can tweak your dashboard depending on your visualization based on the question that you're trying to answer. And that, as a consultant, that's something that I always try and do. I go back to, what is the point of this dashboard? What am I trying to build this for? And this particular one was to say, what if I've got my actuals? What if I tweaked my bed capacity in each area? What would be the impact in each area and on other areas as well? Hopefully that helps.
I just add to that, I suppose. I think you've also got to consider who the audience is. I think you probably just said that, but I think NHS England view of something like this might be very different to provider view. So thinking it from a provider point of view, which I sit in, this would be more an operational tool. Obviously it went down to that next level and you could drill into by day, so you can actually make it an operational tool to really help to manage the beds. Whereas a strategic view, which is what NHS England might need, would look probably quite different, well, very different, because a strategic view and operational view in my dashboards are very different, I suppose. So it's always to do with the users and stuff. So I suppose this is an example of potentially an operational dashboard, an occupancy bed capacity tool that NHS England might want an overview of would look quite different, because they'd be wanting assurance that operationally they're managing the bed capacity in the best possible way. So I think that's a consideration, isn't it?
Spot on there. It's designing for your audience, isn't it?
Yeah.
Am I designing for someone who's trying to manage beds, or am I trying to design for someone who's making sure that the beds are being managed?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, brilliant. Thank you very much, Anoop. Our next speaker, Emma, you're up. We're now going to switch gears and go to a quiz. For any of you that have been here, been on a UK Health Tug before, Ella normally runs our quizzes. Emma is taking on that baton today, running our Kahoot quiz. So I'm going to step away and let Emma. You're up.
I'm very nervous because I feel like there's a lot of pressure to reach Ella's level of good quiz. I'm going to try and keep my camera on so you can see me, but I am struggling with internet issues. So if the audio quality is not good enough, then please just shout within the chat and I'll turn the camera off. So we're going to use Kahoot for this quiz. Hopefully you've all seen.
I'm afraid, Emma, I think your internet is working worse than... No, I think we've lost Emma. Okay, so we've got the Kahoot on screen. If you haven't played Kahoot before, you need to either go onto your web, onto any browser and go to kahoot.it and type in this game pin, or if you have the Kahoot app on your phone, There we go. People are signing up. Excellent. People get the deal. Okay. 10 people signed, 11. Okay, there's me.
In Emma's absence, so hopefully she'll be able to join in when it kicks off. I think the theme is Halloween. I'm not sure there's a Tableau link, but it's just for a bit of fun to get your brains going this morning.
Okay.
And just to let you know, I think Emma's got a crowdfunding page to get better internet. So if anyone wants to donate for Emma's internet challenges, I'm sure she'd be very welcome.
Okay, I think there's 19 attendees and 17 people on the quiz, so I think we're pretty close to saturation. Emma, if you can hear.
Can you guys hear me, please? Yeah.
Not really. You're a bit electronic. But let's hope that the screen share is smoother if you want to start the quiz, and fingers crossed this works.
I can hear you. Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay.
Just about. You're gone again.
Can you see it all right?
Yep.
So if you can hear me, the first few questions are not Tableau related. They're just to help you get used to the interface and how to vote, but then we'll move on to more Tableau questions. So lots of you knew that one. I think that is the most generic Halloween question that anyone could be asked. And going on to the next one. And a key fun fact whilst you're voting, the others mean a fear of big objects, a fear of belly buttons, and a fear of long words. Very impressive Halloween knowledge. Okay, now moving on to our first Tableau or visualization based question. Well done, most of you got that one correct. And Phil stays at the top. Well done, Phil. Next question. I'm sorry I couldn't find a Halloween-based visual for this one. I did try very hard scouring Tableau Public. I'm not sure if you can all see Chris's message in the chat, but he's correctly pointed out that its official name is Radar. But that's not its Halloween themed name. Phil, very good, still staying on the top. Can he keep his lead? This one has a little visual clue for you if you're struggling. Congrats, Steve. I'm happy that you finally got one correct. Did you get this one correct? Phil's still at the top. I don't think anyone can challenge him now. Chris, I'm expecting you. If anyone likes these very cute little paper clips, I can send you the link for how you DIY them yourself. Okay. That's a challenge, Phil. Oh, Chris, did you get it right at the last moment? Oh, no, one last question. This is a bit of a tricky one. Order operations is something that I only just mastered when I was working at Tableau, but once I did master it, it's probably the most useful thing I've ever learned. if anyone wants to learn more about it, there are some really, really great videos on YouTube from the Tableau conference of people doing really good presentations on explaining this. So let's see who won. Well done, Harry, 3rd place. Anoop in 2nd. And
Must be a fix.
Oh, I think it's fair to say that Harry won. Well done, Harry. Sorry.
But that was, I hope you enjoyed.
Well, thank you, Emma. That was good fun. Okay, let me get back to sharing my screen. Yes. Okay, so now we are up to our 2nd speaker. Phil is going to talk to us about some of the work he's been doing at the Greater Manchester Cancer Programme. Phil, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm good to go.
All right, I'll stop sharing my screen again.
Just as soon as I figure out where screen share is, there it is.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Can everyone see that okay? Great. So yeah, I'm here to talk about the Greater Manchester Cancer Patient Tracking List. Before we get into that, a little brief bit about me. Someone once said that I collect employment at NHS trusts as if they were monopoly places, and I've kind of taken that to heart. And that's a kind of brief potted history. I really started with Tableau about 2017, so nearly 3 years ago now, and tried to use it ever since. Contact details are up there if anyone's got any questions they want to push to me directly. But without further ado, a little bit about Greater Manchester Cancer. So we're the Cancer Alliance for Greater Manchester. That means we're not a provider, we're not a CCG. We sit outside of both of those, but with strong links into both. There's probably a little bit of an extra dimension to the Cancer Alliance in Manchester, given that Manchester has the devolution agenda. I'm sure you've all seen Andy Burnham on the news recently. So there's a lot more control of kind of healthcare budgets, healthcare and social care budgets across Greater Manchester, which perhaps lets us do some things a little differently. Greater Manchester Cancer sits kind of within the wider health and social care partnership that's been set up. Certainly my team has really strong links into that health and social care partnerships BI team. And there's lots of programs within cancer, from stopping smoking to keeping an eye on kind of provider performance against key metrics, to generally trying to improve cancer outcomes. The cancer PTL itself, the kind of business problem was we've got 10 providers, all with their own patient tracking list or waiting list for cancer. And how does Greater Manchester as a Cancer Alliance get an overall view of those 10 separate lists, given that we know that the boundaries between CCGs and providers aren't coterminous? You know, someone who lives in CCG A, who would maybe go to the A&E in CCG B, could move for cancer treatment to provider C. So there's a lot of kind of crossing of the streams, as it were, with people moving around the system as a whole. The idea was to try and get one list set up that covers all CCGs, all providers within Greater Manchester, and actually looks to some of the providers outside of Greater Manchester who come into the Greater Manchester system. So within Manchester, we've got the Christie, which is kind of a big tertiary centre, and the Christie tends to pull patients in from all over the Northwest in some cases, but predominantly from kind of the Eastern Cheshire end of things. Lots of obstacles in the way to get that set up. Most predominant one is probably the IG agenda. How do you convince 10 trusts who've been used to managing their own work internally to share that with the other 9 trusts who in some cases are their competitors? Then you factor in the CCGs, then you factor in people like the Cancer Alliance, the Health and Social Care Partnership, Andy Burnham's office, and all of a sudden we're asking providers to expose their data to a much greater degree than they've ever done before. There's obviously different computer systems, and like I say, that increased visibility, oversight and timeliness. Our aim was to get pretty much a live dashboard up and running, or as live as possible. We've got it to daily, and that feels like that's about right. We don't feel that we need real time. But broadly, and I am skipping over my boss, Graham Beals, who I believe spoke at these before, will probably chastise me here. I'm skipping over 2 years of work on the information governance front. That only really got resolved with the pandemic and with the kind of real acute need to see where cancer patients who are high priority, given the fact that hospital services were all but stopped during wave 1, and we're significant pressure on them now in wave 2. There was a real kind of need for speed at the start of the wave 1 pandemic to get this set up. And that really got us over the line. So I don't want to skip over the kind of IG needs, but they were significant and we did get them over the line. What did we get them over the line to? We've basically got a daily flow from providers that ends up in Tableau. There's a lot of tech there that I don't intend to go into. Our collection is, as well as having everyone that's open, it covers the last 30 days to pick up any data changes that happen. And like I say, this was set up at speed, so it is a little dirtier than we would like it. You'd perhaps, in an ideal world, like to split one historical data set from one live data set. We've got them all in one data set, which means that we're doing a reasonably large amount of heavy lifting within the Tableau layer. Don't worry, it's not all going to be in PowerPoint this. We will get into Tableau. We have got reports up and running. We've got a basic PTL. Off the same data set, we're able to hang conversion rates, so the amount of people that come in that we confirm have cancer, and diagnosis and incidence volumes as well. And at this point, I'll stop sharing this and I'll start sharing Tableau itself. Back onto there. Oh, sorry guys, stand by. With any joy, can someone just give me the nod that we can see a Tableau server instance here?
Yeah.
Great. So this is the great Manchester Health and Social Care Partnership Tableau server. As you can see, there's lots in there. We're particularly interested in the cancer folder. Within the cancer folder, we've got lots of reports. The most kind of common one that's used is this one, which is our basic PTL metrics report. We've got, and this is where Tableau needs to load. We've got a basic submission status page, so it lets us know how up to date the data that we've got in. As you can see here, Manchester University have been really good this morning and they've got their submission in quite early. The other trusts we're still waiting on. All of the dashboards try and display as live information as possible. So in the case of all these trusts that are orange, the data that you'll see will be related to the previous day's submission. It just gives us an idea of how fresh everything that we're looking at is. This next chart is kind of the mainstay. This is telling us how many people we've got on a cancer waiting list, and how long those patients have been waiting. For those people familiar with cancer, anything in this column is generally considered not great. But the volume of figures in there at the minute is probably representative of the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic. There's nothing kind of overly sexy Tableau wise. It is kind of hashtag real Tableau stuff. These are management information reports that are being used in anger. I guess where the real value is things like this filter here. So using some parameter switches, at the click of a button, we're able to change from a provider view to a commissioner view reasonably quickly. So that flicks straight away to a CCG view. Bearing in mind that our customer base is both providers and CCGs, it's really important for us to be able to flick between the two. It saves us having kind of two reports that are essentially doing the same thing. On top of that, you can break it down, and again, this will be familiar for anyone who's worked with cancer data before. You can, break things down by source. You can break things down by tumor site. A lot of the big weighters at the minute are in lower GI for operational reasons. A lot of the lower GI work is kind of aerosol generating, so that's a lot of the stuff that's been unable to happen during the pandemic. But you get the idea. You've all seen kind of Tableau functionality like this before, I'm sure. I don't intend to go through every chart. There's various kind of breakdowns. This is the same one, but it flips provider and cancer site. So some of it, like I say, it's not the great stuff, not the greatest charts that I'd probably put out there as a data professional, but they have been requested by customers. A lot of them are kind of numbers in space. But, that's what we're here to do. We're here to kind of meet the customer need. One thing that we do have is we've got a toggle here that lets us flick from everyone that's waiting to really separating out those 62 days into 3 further categories. So we can see who's really at the worst of the worst. When it does that, one of the beauties of Tableau, again, using parameters, is the ability to change colors. So these colors we have tried, or we intend to try, making the 2 color schemes endemic throughout the dashboards, so that at a glance, you're kind of giving the user cues to let them know, are you looking at long weights or are you looking at all of the weights? The colors are also set up for colorblind users. These are allegedly easily seen by colorblind users, of which we apparently have quite a few. We've had some requests through saying, I can't see the charts. So we took the decision to try and make it as user-friendly as possible. Skipping through, we also look at the other end. This is the bit that the CCGs are kind of really interested in, which is where are the GP referrals coming in from. In fact, I will jump onto the other one. This one's okay. So you can see here, this is when we kind of first started collecting data early in the year. You can see the impact of the COVID hitting on referrals coming through the door. It's really positive news that referrals are now kind of back up to this average pre-COVID level. Again, we can flick by organization. So you've got one toggle to say, do you want to look at providers or CCG? And the second toggle again to look at individual providers or CCGs within those charts, just to see, broken down by cancer site, is there anything where we're still struggling, where we're still not getting that volume of referrals back in. We've got a few data quality reports at the end, which are, like anything, when we're dealing with this much data, there are various DQ errors or things that we think look suspicious. As a Cancer Alliance, we don't own any of the data. It's not our data, it's very much the provider's data. All we can do is highlight things that look suspicious. So this report, for example, highlights really old referrals that are still open that we don't think are genuine. And the aim there is to get providers to go back and look at their data and just help us present the best information that we can do. Weights over time, this really gives, just change the filters back. This will teach me not to publish without checking all of the filters. This just gives a kind of time series view of how many people have been waiting. The colours are people are waiting for diagnostics, people waiting for treatment. So we can really see that this kind of started to ramp up. We got back on top of it in between the two waves, and it's just starting to ramp back up again. Very quickly take you through another couple of charts. These are all hanging off the one data set. So we tried to collect as much data as possible to get as many use cases out of it as possible. We've got something on diagnosis, on conversion rates. So we can see that the red is people who were waiting, who were in the system waiting for a diagnosis. The blue have had cancer excluded, and the greens are people who were diagnosed with cancer. The real advantage of this is conversion rates tend to only be published on a yearly basis, and they're quite historical looking. So we're able to provide much more real-time data, far more real-time data in this case, around kind of the conversion rates of cancer, and give people, it was really important in the pandemic when we had that reduced number of referrals to see that we were still getting diagnosis of cancers at reasonable levels, so that yes, we know that referrals dropped, but were we still getting the right referrals through? So people have found that really useful. Something that Emma's probably really interested in will be something like this. The national figures again are on a delay. There's a 2 to 3 month delay of national cancer performance figures coming out. This is still in development. We think we're almost ready to share it. Anything prior to this kind of highlighted area at the end is published data, and anything after that is unpublished. So we're really able to give a real-time view of what performance is doing up and above what the national published figures are for. The CCGs and the Cancer Alliance love this because it's given us a much earlier live, pretty much live view of what performance will come in as. At the minute, we've only got it developed for the 14 days and the 28 days. There are a couple of other cancer targets, 31 days and 62. They're a little more complex, but the aim is to build those up. One last one that I just want to run through. Everything so far has been pretty much kind of, you know, normal use case for Tableau. It's management information's, it's presenting management information either in the form of lists or data or charts that tell you how performance has been hit. This is something else that we've got in development, and it tries to do something a little bit different. What we've got across the bottom is the number of days that someone waited for their first seen appointment, with the target being at 14 days. So everything up to here is good. Everything back here is bad, getting steadily worse as you move across the axis. The line shows you performance. So in this case, at the minute, we're not hitting. Where the line changes from orange to blue is where we hit performance. So it's kind of turning performance around on its head a little bit. And instead of saying, did you hit or miss, telling you when you achieved the standard of 93%. And if we get on the hover help, we can see that it's actually in there. We achieved, instead of achieving it on day 14, we achieved on day 19. There's still some work to do on this to really pull that kind of key statement out. But what this lets us do is, and I'm going to stop sharing and jump back into PowerPoint, if that's okay with everyone. Just because there's some sensitivities around using that chart to drill down. I guess the point is, you know, a basic level informatics is about just, have you hit performance, have you not hit performance? We're trying to do something a little bit different and tell how we're hitting performance. These are all screen grabs, just with kind of which trusts they are and which specialties filtered out, just to protect the innocent, as it were. This would be good. This is an example of good performance. We've got the majority of people being hit in 14 days. We've got a big tower of green at 14 days, and performance is being hit on 14 days. This is a service that is working. Yes, there's always a long tail of ones that we miss, but broadly, this is what you want to see. What happens when you start to apply some pressure? So we move forward in time. We're now at May 2020. The pandemic has started, and we see the majority of green is still being hit, but performance has drifted back out to day 28. So we're not hitting performance anymore, but we are still hitting the lion's share of people within those 14 days. What happens when you continue to apply pressure? Now we see quite a different picture. We're not hitting the target. We've got increased, this whole tail is lifting up in volume in comparison with the green. So we start to see that kind of continuing pressure means that there's more and more people being hit outside the 14 days, less people being hit inside the green. And just telling people, have you hit or have you missed? All we'd be telling them is, yes, you've missed performance, and it was about 60% on 14 days. This is trying to say you're hitting it at 24 days, and look, you're missing it quite badly. The next stage that we're seeing in a couple of services at a couple of providers is, almost a new normal. There are that many people in the backlog that we obviously try and hit people in the order that they came in, how long they've been waiting. We're now seeing a new spike. It's the same graph as this, but we are missing performance, and the spike is now upwards at 21 days almost. So we're seeing people within 3 weeks, not 2 weeks. People have found this really useful, not as a tool to hit providers with, but as a tool to understand what's happening. And it really kind of, that one of the big advantages of Tableau is being able to tell a story about what's happening. I think this is ideal for kind of the narrative kind of function in Tableau. I think just something to demonstrate how performance has changed, or how we hit performance, and how that changes over time when you're in a really sustained bad patch during the pandemic and you're unable to see people. The one bit that's missing from this that we've tried to do, and apologies, these are not real NHS trusts. Again, I'm just protecting the innocent a little bit. We know that we've got people waiting on a first appointment, and those people don't fall into the bucket of hit performance or miss performance until they get their first appointment. But what we can say about them is whether they've been waiting 14 days or longer. So do you still have a chance to hit those people? And broadly, we can see that, yes, there are lots of people who still have a chance, but we're able to go kind of one step further. So not projecting current performance to today, projecting future performance, and say of the people who are on a waiting list, 20% of them, you've got no chance of hitting performance. So the best performance you can hope for next month is somewhere around 80%. That's the idea behind that one, just to start telling people about what's coming down the line and give people some future awareness. Operational managers within the Cancer Alliance have really found that helpful, even if it's just in setting expectations of, yes, we've made all these changes, this is happening, but we don't expect to see those changes, come to fruition until we've got through the backlog, until we've seen these people who have already been waiting longer than 14 days. That's it, really. Bit of a whistle-stops tour. I guess, are there any questions from anyone? I'm just going to stop sharing.
Very much, Phil. That was a really good chat, good talk. We do have a question. I'm just going to allow Susan to talk. Susan, you should be able to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, thank you. First off, Phil, I work at CCG and I find those reports really, really helpful. We use them quite regularly. One of the things that I would find even more useful is on things like the 62-day PTL and the 104-day wait charts or pages. I wondered how feasible it would be to add like a date filter in there so that you can actually track progress over time. I suppose I'm conscious at the minute the 104-day waits thankfully are kind of coming down, but through the current pages there isn't an option to actually go back and see, well, what were they a month ago, and I just wondered how feasible that might be.
It's absolutely feasible, and it's something that we're very aware there's a need for. Over the last certainly the last few weeks, we've been asked for it a couple of times. So yeah, like I say, it's a snapshot database. We're doing a lot of filtering within Tableau to pull out the live records for any dashboard that shows the live things, but we do have that historical run of data in there. So yes, it's absolutely on our list of things to do.
Right, Brill, that's really useful. The second question would be around the emergency presentation developments. Again, that's an area that we're kind of really looking to get data on. And I suppose I'm just looking at what sort of timescales are you working to on that?
So actually, at the start of this week on Tuesday, we went live with the second iteration of the collection that we're asking from our providers. The first one was stood up quite quickly, and we aim to get something up on a page by kind of the end of March, start of April. We realised that emergency presentations was something that we missed in that first tranche. So we've gone back out to providers with a revised specification that includes emergency presentation. And this week we've just been working through, I think we've got 9 out of 10 trusts, maybe 8 out of 10 trusts have submitted a larger data set that includes the emergency presentation data. Once we get that kind of solid and up and running, emergency presentations is actually at the top of the list of our things to develop. So yeah, basically the situation is we are collecting that data hopefully by the end of the week. That includes a historical load, so we'll be able to go back over time and watch this space. It's certainly very, very near the top of the list of things that we need to develop.
Right, brilliant. That's good. It just saves us. We won't kind of go down that route of trying to develop, trying to get it data ourselves. So that's really good. We'll wait for the GM Cancer to do it. Thank you.
All right, brilliant. Thanks. Does anyone else have any questions for Phil before we move on? Anyone? Either feel free to type them or just put your hand up in the participants pane and I'll unmute you. Okay. Well, I feel Phil, you've got off lightly. Got off lightly with the questions there. So thank you very much. That was a really, really interesting presentation. Yeah, and thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Oh, sorry, Phil, we did just get one question come in from Will at the end. Do people use the Tableau comment to talk about the findings? I'm assuming this is using the commenting function on Tableau server to discuss the reports. That's a really good question. Thanks, Will.
No, it's not something that we've been using. I guess one of the key things is we are pushing out these Tableau reports to CCGs, providers, throughout the wider health and social care partnership, local authorities, the mayor's office, care homes. We're now doing a lot of the track and trace reporting for a lot of the stats on track and trace for Greater Manchester. So we've got this huge user base across Greater Manchester who perhaps haven't seen Tableau before, even within kind of the smaller cancer arena of CCGs and providers. There are some people who have used Tableau before and love it. There are others who it's all brand new to them. It's not something that we've looked at. It may be something that we try and look at in future. It probably is one of those things that you need some kind of comms around, or not just comms as an email, but kind of take people through. So you need sessions, you need to show people how to use it. And I guess the challenge is, how do we do that at scale across an entire health economy? But it's certainly functionality we're aware of, and if there's demand to go down that route, we'd be happy to go down it.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Phil. All right, so I guess at this point, moving on, I'm just going to share my screen. All right, so that's the oh, sorry, Rebecca's just asked a question as well. Might as well, let's answer the question before we move on. Are there any developments for cancers diagnosed at early stage?
Not specifically that we're looking at yet. No, I suspect it will come. At the minute, we're very much still in kind of a response to COVID and the recovery phase of cancer services. It's not something that's been asked for at the minute. No.
All right. Thanks, Phil. Right, that's it. I promised. That's it. I'll stop now. Okay. So where we're at now, we've had our main talks. We're going to go now into just a couple of slides from me before we go into the networking part of the user group. So first thing, a shout out to all of our community guys out there that are putting things on for everyone's benefit, doing it not for any financial benefit or gain. They're just out there giving us great opportunities for learning, great opportunities to see what is possible with Tableau and still like a pro, especially in the case of sort of seeing some of the things I see people do on Makeover Monday and SportsBiz Sunday. I love downloading and stealing their very clever dashboards they built. So we have Makeover Monday, we have Workout Wednesday, and then Project Health Biz if you want to be really healthcare focused about it. And then from our old friend Simon Beaumont and his team, the SportsBiz Sunday. So they're all on Twitter. You can follow them on the hashtags. There's the websites available all on the screen here. I'm sure that they're pretty easy to Google as well. But for me as a Tableau trainer, I give these links out to everyone that I train on Tableau as well, because it is quite simply the best way to continue your learning, is to just do the work and do it with data that isn't necessarily your work data, because at the end of the day, if you spend so much time just looking at your work data, you become very focused on one style of reporting, one type of calculation, one type of visualization, because that's the way that your organization likes to visualize data. Getting out there and doing these community opportunities are great for learning. Robert, yes, Udemy, there's some really good courses on there. I can recommend 2 or 3 straight away. One is the one that prepares you for Tableau Certified Associate exam. That is an excellent course. If you're getting really advanced in Tableau and you want to go to the next level, Toan Hoang he's a Tableau Zen master. He has an Udemy course that is specifically about how to draw really complicated chart types in Tableau. They're for me the two strongest ones. But yeah, there is some great stuff on Udemy. Coursera has some, but for free, the community, these opportunities in the community are great to use to develop your skills. Other useful info, things for you guys to know, is that there is another webinar on Monday, because why not? Let's do more learning, see what's going on out there. The Tableau healthcare team are putting on a webinar on Monday about how using dashboards, using Tableau, using data to help improve your CQC ratings. Now, I know this has been worked on for quite some time by a group of consultants who really do know their CQC stuff. So definitely worth tuning in for that one and having a listen. Also, for any of you that didn't, Tableau Conference-ish in October was free. It was great. There was tons of really useful content. Emma mentioned one of the videos earlier when she was talking about order of operations. There's an entire library of amazing content available for free on the YouTube channel for Tableau Conference-ish. So I'd definitely give that a Google, look it up, look up Tableau Conference-ish 2020, go to the YouTube channel, and there is a huge list of videos that you can watch and learn from. In fact, I'm pretty sure, and I'll try and dig it out and add it to the email that comes out with a video of this meeting, that someone has created a Tableau public data viz which links to all of the videos on YouTube. So I'll try and dig that out and share that, because it's a great way to navigate the huge amount of information available to you. And of course, there is our own healthcare user group on the Tableau community. The community did migrate recently. There were some teething issues, but it seems to me to have settled and be up and running and working as it should again. Most of the links are working. Most of the groups are up and running. Please, if you're not on the UK Healthcare User Group, get on there. It's where you're going to find out first about any future meetings or anything that we're going to be doing in the UK healthcare community around Tableau. Okay. And there you go. So this is where you can subscribe to our user group. So user groups, tableau.com, UK healthcare. So all that's left for me to say is thank you for your time. Thank you for being part of our community. Thank you for everything you're doing in your day-to-day work, supporting the NHS at this time. I can say that as an outsider. You can all give yourselves your own clap. You don't need me to clap at 8 PM for you. I would just like to say, yeah, just a general thank you to everyone. Anyone has any questions, who wants to just talk to any of us on the panel, please stick around. I will unmute everyone so we can all talk and network for a little while. Ella, you've turned your video on. Do you want to say anything?
No, I was just turning on to make sure people knew we were still here. But no, thank you for everybody coming along, and stick around if you want to have a chat with us.
All right, so I'm going to stop.
I'm not going to risk turning my video back on because that killed it last time.
Yeah, don't put Kahoot back on either.
Yeah, if you're going to stick around and you want to chat and talk to the panelists, just put your hand up and I'll click on the allow to talk button and we'll all be part of the big group. Because I don't think I can allow everyone to talk in one go. No. So yeah. Thank you, everyone, and I hope if you don't stick around, I hope you all have a great day, and we'll see you at the next Tableau User Group.